Welcome to Criminal Gines, a comedic true crime watch-along podcast where we watch Criminal Minds, all 15 seasons, and discuss the true crime that can be linked, however indirectly, to the episode. We're your hosts, Stacy Johnson and Veronica Shea, and this week we're joined by Dan Donohue in discussing Season 1, Episode 17, A Real Rain. Dan, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming on. We're so excited.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of your chore talks.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah, I just started doing the laundry folding, which is such a huge leap for me creatively.
I mean, just starting with forks and now to laundry.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a range.
Yeah. And those are the only chores I do in my house. My floors are disgusting. There's like stuff growing in the toilet, but I'll move to that eventually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to
Within
start
due
somewhere.
time.
Yeah.
Baby steps, right?
That's how kids are. They need to make chores content to do them. You know what I mean? These freaking millennials who are all 45 now.
Yeah.
36, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, let's just hop in. All right, so we watched A Real Rain, and we start with this guy in his New York apartment, which is a pretty big apartment, so like good for him, but he's going a little crazy. He's like tippy-tapping with his fingers. He's duct taping and aluminum foiling the windows.
Just normal kind of stuff.
Yeah, normal stuff.
Yeah, that's just...
Also, this sound, I don't know what it was, but the sound of the foil was giving me major, vibes.
Oh, you didn't like it?
Did not. I was just like, ew.
That's just what happens when a guy lives alone in an apartment. It's weird that everyone thought that was like a strange. That's just what happens.
Do you put foil on your window?
Yeah, if I'm feeling it.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
Oh, all right. That's cool.
Yeah, I'll put some foil on there. That's what dude arts and crafts are. We don't crochet, we do that.
Perfect. I mean, that's something. I don't know what it is, but it's something. It cuts down on energy bills.
Absolutely.
It's smart.
Insulation.
It's insulation. But then he takes to the streets and he kills a cabbie.
You can never take to the streets.
It's just not a good
The streets
idea.
take to you.
It's always bad to take to the streets.
Then we jump to the gang. We find out all of his killings. The locations are different. The victimology is different. They're looking for someone who's potentially hunting indiscriminately. Mm-hmm. There's a woman who was killed in her apartment. They realize he was lying in wait for her. They decide this is not a disorganized killer, but he does present a mixed profile. But ultimately, he's going to be a small, angry white guy with a day job. So that really narrows it down.
Yeah.
Have there ever been any real tall killers?
Yeah, Ed Kemper.
How
Dahmer.
tall
Kemper was
he?
a beast.
Ed Kemper's about 6'6", 6'7", I think.
Whoa, damn.
He's big. He's a big boy. And then
That's
Dahmer
a
was like
really
6'1",
tall guy.
6'2".
That's just the height women say they like, but 6'7" is you're a small forward in the NBA.
Yeah, that's why he's my favorite killer.
Really? Because he was tall?
Yeah. And he was, a pioneer. He was before Bundy. You gotta love someone who's a visionary.
The game.
I am definitely now looking up the shortest serial killer.
Oh, yeah.
Now I need to know the opposite.
That is honestly an interesting sort of question because it's now you guys have been doing this for quite a while. When it comes to the profile of these guys, is there any similarity other than the fact that pretty much all of them are men? I'm sure that a woman gets in there from time to time.
Yeah.
But are there any interesting similarities that you weren't expecting between them?
Oh, that's an interesting question.
Not that I wasn't expecting,
Yeah.
but
Right.
there definitely are a lot of similarities. If you look mental health issues stemming from child abuse and things like that. Height wise, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm looking at this list that kind of lists them out. There's a lot of 5'9" people on here and 5'8" people. So
That feels right.
That's a height of accomplishment is the thing. 5'8", 5'9" is the kind of guy. It's funny. You talk to women and it's baseline women are generally into really tall guys. But when you really get down to the nitty gritty, a lot of them are yeah, but there's something about the 5'8", 5'9" range where there's a level of sort of intensity and drive. And I think that may be the reason for that, because I think if you're 6'4" and you have the impulses that a lot of these guys have, you just go, okay, I have the impulse to kill. but I am just going to get pussy instead. That's just going to kind of be my life instead. But then 5859, you go, well, we need to manifest whatever I feel into the world, which is sometimes the ending of life. Yeah.
It's like overcompensation.
Right. Or at least compensation.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say they're...
would be over.
I like to bring sort of a short king mentality to the podcast.
How tall are you?
5'10", unfortunately.
Oh, that's what I thought. Yeah, that was my guess.
Yeah. It's in my bio.
That might be why that would be my guess.
I'm sorry to have derailed
this is what we're here for.
I went on to it. I started looking at then I saw the shortest was actually a woman. She's 5 foot. It's Kristen Gilbert.
Oh,
the angel of death. I know, right?
Cute. She's pocket size.
Death is really nice.
Then they started connecting famous people to how tall they are. Pablo Escobar is only 5'5".
That feels right.
Really?
Yeah.
Whoa. That's surprising.
That's what I said. Again, that's what I thought.
Again, empires are sustained by the tall and confident, but empires are built by the short and psychotic.
Correct.
God, that is
Napoleon.
So true.
Yeah, Napoleon. People who are elected to the country, right? Like the country that was already built, tall, because they need to be political and put together, and people want to kind of be them. But the people who forge, the people who take the whatever raw mass they're working with and forge some, I think that's dominated by the short.
I agree.
Yeah, they're built different.
They're built different. They're built different. They're built with want. And that's good.
Right.
Need, drive, desire.
Yeah.
It's the same, when they were kids, I'm sure they had to, be scrappy and learn how to, bite people in the knees to kind of, get over.
Survive?
In the schoolyard. Yeah. And that's the kind of mentality.
Yeah. Is that what you did, Stacy?
Yes. I'm only 5'2" on a good day.
Yeah, 5'2" is getting to short. So, yeah, you've had to fight your way
Getting to short.
It's getting
very short.
I would say 5'1", 5'0" is when you're talking, when you're getting to real...
creepy short.
Yeah, No, that isn't. No. You real freak short. No. Listen, it's all, any height is good. We're just talking about what they mean.
Amazing. Exactly. Our last week's guest is 5 foot. Jazzy.
Oh, hell yeah.
I always tell her that I would appreciate if she were to try harder to be less weird. because of the height. I was like, can you be taller? I don't know.
Right. You're almost the rest of this needs to really be normal and easy to understand. Yeah.
Because this is too much.
Yeah. You can't be 5 foot tall and also crawling on all fours around the kitchen.
Yeah. Well, she basically is. She's so close to it.
Yeah, that's
right
nice.
there.
Just like the angel of death.
Kristen Gilbert. I grew up with a girl named Kristen Gilbert. I wonder if it's the same person.
Yeah, that's cool.
Did you?
Okay, so we cut to a church. This guy, this tippy-tappy finger guy, kills a priest. He shoots him and then stabs him through the ear. This is kind of the methodology he's forming. But this time he blindfolds his victim. And there's a witness who didn't see his face, but saw his hands doing the weird thing. And so now it's maybe he's not killing at random, right? Because he didn't kill this lady. Now we find out that all of the victims are connected because they've all been recently tried for a crime, but found not guilty. The killer feels he has a higher purpose, but feels unseen. They don't mention that this profile would include cops as a suspect, although very much so cops would be on the list. But we don't love to point fingers at the people who are trying to catch people. Let's see. Further digging shows that all these victims went through the same courthouse. There's a crime reporter who keeps scooping everyone, and he's also covered all of the cases. So, of course, he becomes a suspect. Spoiler alert, it's not him. Out in a park, there's an undercover cop who approaches a hooded figure. He gets shot. The shooter turns himself in and confesses to all the murders, but it's not him either. They now realize that whoever knows all of the details must have been in the courtrooms when the trials were taking place. So they figure out it's the court reporter or the stenographer, hence the tippy tapping, but he's called out sick for the day. Oh no. They go to his house and they find a backlog of court cases. They know one of the cases must be the next victim. So they profile all the cases very, very quickly. They find a good target and call the house just as the unsub forces his way into that apartment. So they rush over there. Hotch tries to talk him down. We've found out that Hotch is a master negotiator, which is great for Hotch. Good for him. He tries to talk him down, but his unsuccessful SWAT takes him out and kills him. And that's our episode. And then they do, the credit sequence where everyone is being man on the street interviewed and they're like, he's a hero. He's a monster. He's only doing what the cops want.
Yeah.
Like, okay.
Yeah, the cops don't brutally murder enough people. That's my take.
That's it. So, cool.
Yeah.
And that's our episode.
And that's our episode.
We didn't get too much Shemar in this. It was a Hotch episode, but I feel like what we did get, mostly on the phone with Garcia, was prime Shemar Moore, quite frankly.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Now, you're both big Shemar Moore fans. Is that correct?
Yeah. Well, yes. First of all, he's a very, very hot man. If I were to pick my crush on the show, it would be Matthew Gray Gubler.
Well, this is my question about Shemar Moore. And there's a few people that enter this this space. I would say like a Brad Pitt might be in this category as well. Is there such thing as too symmetrical? Is there such thing as someone who is like so flawless it almost enters this like uncanny level of, I see this as less of a person, more as like a piece of art? Because to me, Shemar Moore sort of enters that category.
Yes, I would agree with that. But I would agree that Shemar Moore is also a man that the most hetero of men can admit is like so attractive.
Yeah. See, but yeah, maybe I don't know what my level of hetero is, because I'm going one step further and being like, well, I want a guy with a little bit of flaw. You know what I mean? I want a guy with a little bit of gruff to him.
Yeah. I mean, my type is not on that show because I like refrigerators, like bears. It's the heterosexual bear. If that's
I've heard them referred to as chairs.
Why?
You want a chair, a guy you can
sit on.
A guy you can just sit on. Yeah.
Yeah. I want someone who can like lift me up. Like, you'd have to do a lot of squats. It's like that's what I want.
So are we talking like, do you want like a beef pavilion, like a John Cena type, or are you talking more like a power lifter body?
We've often
either is fine.
Referred to them as refrigerators.
Yeah, they're literally built like refrigerators. Do you know a lot of British comics at all?
A decent amount.
You might laugh if you know who this is. His name's Greg Davis.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yes. I know the archetype. Yeah, this is a big kind of furnace of a man.
A furnace.
Exactly.
I like that.
I like furnace too.
Yeah, you could start a wood fire in his torso.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
but like
nice.
I've dated like 5'8" guy, like my height guys.
Yeah,
it ultimately comes down to personality, and if they're fun, like if they're boring, it's like if you're gonna be boring, you have to be tall.
Interesting. That's interesting. That's an interesting.
You have to bring something else to the table.
I would go one step further and say sometimes tall people don't seem to be very compelled to be interesting. But the funniest person I knew in high school was also very tall. So I guess that's not completely true all the time. Yeah.
Well, because I would say that like the tall guys have never had to have a personality, much like beautiful women.
Okay. People say that, but in practice, sometimes it's not true. And sometimes people who like, I was never tall, I was never short, I was always like somewhere in the middle. But I have seen a lot of like shorter people be like, yeah, well, I had to develop a personality. And it's like, oh, really? Because you didn't. It doesn't. You kind of didn't. Like I think
your
the
personality is that you're angry.
Sometimes the narrative can get so out of hand that people start putting themselves into categories without actually like enacting the thing that they're talking about in their lives.
Oh, totally.
Yeah, and it can be a little bit tricky. But anyway,
I think though when you said that tall people don't usually aren't very interesting. My first thought was...
I don't feel that. I know, but I'm just... stereotype, yes.
Okay. I would say it's because who's talking to them? They're outside of the conversation, literally.
Interesting.
Especially for me.
Everyone's talking to you, Stacy. You're in the middle and you're loud.
Everybody's gathered around you like some pagan ritual. They're holding hands and doing dances around you.
This one time we were in Spain and we were on the transit and a soccer game had just gotten out and it stopped at the stadium. And so we were just getting hordes of people and I somehow got separated from my group and everyone else is taller than me. And I found myself surrounded by these really tall German tourists who had gone to the game and they just looked down on me and they were like, oh, we need to protect her. So they made a circle around me in the subway and I just was surrounded by all these tall German people that I couldn't understand.
Did you feel safe?
I did.
You felt protected.
Yes, I felt protected. It was
surrounded
great.
by Germans. Yeah, is very interesting because in certain situations you would feel very unsafe, but that's
like,
good.
I would feel unsafe on a train.
Yeah, on a train
Germans.
surrounded by Germans has a connotation historically that could be very scary, but that's good when it comes to like the height thing. I think it does play like a big role in people's lives, but it's definitely not like the determining factor. I don't think. I think that you can I think you can be tall and very interesting. I think you could be short and very boring, but I think things may, if you looked at like a distribution chart, I think it probably does skew towards short people having developed like at least somewhat more of a personality.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, I think so.
We have to.
Not to offend all the tall. See, here's the thing. There are entire like Reddits, subreddits, like whatever, dedicated to basically like short people getting together and talking about their experience. And I have not seen that yet for tall people because, again, tall people are busy out in the world getting pussy and running industries. So that's why I think short people probably have an experience that is a little bit more flavored, if I may say.
Yes.
Yeah, as someone who's in the middle.
I'm just looking up and down all day. I'm looking up and down. I have you know what I mean? Up and down. And
yeah.
As 5'10", there is a level of insecurity just because of how insane like media has gotten when it comes to like the connection to height. Because there have been moments in my younger years where I was like, I'm not 6'4", like I'm not cool. This is not cool. But then you look at the real life and it's like, oh no, I'm fine.
I mean, if you're cast on a show, you're going to be the tallest person of the, you know what I mean? That's
unless it's got our boy Shemar. He's a solid 6'2", I think.
We looked this up once, but I don't think that's true.
6'1".
So probably 6 foot.
So yeah, probably.
So probably 5'11".
5'2".
Yeah, he's very well built.
Well built. Is he solid enough? But he's not solid enough for you. You want him more of a refrigerator than that.
Like
no,
more like
for me,
more this way. And not so much this way.
Yeah.
She wants more this way.
Yeah.
You know?
He's too pretty for me. I would be so insecure all the time.
Are you aware of the wrestler The Big Show?
No, but I will be looking him up right now.
I worked with The Big Show. He's the best, but I was his assistant for a little bit on a show, and he would get so hot under the lights that I would have to hold a fan for him, but he's so big that I was holding pedestal fans. I have a photo. I'll send it to you. It's like...
Really,
you do?
Yeah. Like one of those mini fans that somebody would bring to like Six Flags, but it has to be a real size one.
But it's a real size one.
That rocks.
It's...
God damn it. I always feel like I learned so much about you.
Yeah. But he is delightful. He's so nice.
So The Big Show was asked who is the most solid base, meaning like The Big Show, because he's so big, the really impressive thing is like who can pick him up. So a lot of times like matches with The Big Show, because The Big Show is a bit of a heel, and with a smaller wrestler picking him up, which is a like small amount of wrestlers that can do that comfortably. He was asked who is the most solid base he ever worked with. And he said, well, I've worked with Brock Lesnar, who is like an incredibly accomplished athlete, like won a UFC belt, was a incredible wrestler, great football player, all that, like incredibly athletically, physically gifted. But he said the number one most solid base he worked with, do you know who it is?
No.
John Cena. He said John Cena. He said when I was being picked up, it was almost a little bit romantic. He was like, when I was picked up by John Cena, I felt like nothing could knock me over.
I love him.
That's actually another interesting one. Has there ever been a buff serial killer?
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah, I feel like.
Because when I think about it, I wonder maybe if those impulses are sublimated into weightlifting for those guys, and vice versa if you don't have that level of physical outlet.
I've never met a lifter who doesn't have some kind of confidence, and I do feel like most serial killers aren't necessarily confident. Like you get the Bundys, like you get the manipulators who are confident in that.
And I feel like our guy for this week was like a relatively confident dude too.
Yeah, but he had that great YouTube following.
Yeah, right. He was confident like a social media influencer. He was ready to put the front-facing camera on at any moment.
Okay.
He's like,
I
Googled
this, and all I'm getting are serial killers from Buffalo, New York. And apparently there's quite a few, so I'm a little stressed about that.
Don't go to Buffalo, New York.
But if there aren't any buff serial killers, maybe we have found a way to deter the act.
Yeah.
Which is to
get him in the gym.
Every kid who has like a head injury or a troubled childhood, get them in the weight room.
Yeah.
It's not a bad idea.
Absolutely agree with that. Okay. So, Shemar.
Gimme more. Moore.
Shemar.
We got to rate him. So we do 1 to 5 scales, or helpings is what we call it, because we understand Shemar is pretty much a 10.
Right.
But sometimes, so he has his own scale.
Sometimes you just want a little more.
Yeah, 1 to 5
Get
helpings.
it? More.
A little more.
Yeah. I think Stacy named the segment, so she's really into it.
On accident.
So Stacy, you go first.
Yeah, go
just on the photo.
Got it.
Or if you watched the episode,
Just
you
on
can
the
do it
photo
on the
alone, I'm going to give this one a 5, y'all. Like, top marks.
Yeah. I'm also going to do a 5. It's very broody. It's very look away. It's very, it's giving me hero.
FBI, like, garb. I do love a person in uniform. Like, I'm into it.
I'm here for it.
I'm going 5 just because I think double flip phone on the belt, which is such a strong move.
Yeah.
And then for some reason, the gun doesn't look to be placed in a safe way, but it's so close to the phones that I feel like he can reach for just anything. At that point, I like that.
Oh my gosh, triple 5s.
Yeah, triple 5.
This is exciting. I think we've only ever had one other triple 5.
One other triple 5. Also with a hetero male.
Interesting.
See, the men love Shemar. That's why it's Shemar.
That's just boys supporting boys. You know what I mean?
We love to see it.
Yeah.
Not enough of it.
To see it.
Not enough of it.
Yeah. I love it.
I love to see a man win.
I'm so excited about this case today.
Yeah, me too.
It's so good and very much obviously this episode.
It's wild.
Yeah. Are you going to start it, Stace? You want me to start?
Oh my gosh. Can I do it? I might not be very good at it, but I'll do it.
Man.
That's how I approach a lot of things in life, though.
You just got to do it.
Okay. All right. I'm doing it. Pedro Rodrigues Filho.
Filio. So Filio, fun fact, I learned this from a different podcast, is actually just like junior or son in Brazilian. So it's ultimately Pedro Rodrigues Jr.
Oh, cool. Okay.
I know. Fun fact.
All right. Well, Pedro Rodrigues Jr. was known as Brazil's most notorious serial killer. He was a self-proclaimed vigilante. He was born in October 29th, 1954, and actually just recently passed away on March 5th of this year.
Yeah. He was killed too, right?
He was. Yeah.
Killed in a shootout.
Killed in a shootout, in a drive-by shootout. And at the time of his killing, he was a free man. Now let's get into it. Oh my gosh. This is exciting for me. Go on.
When you die at 68 in a shootout, it's like dying at 85 at a heroin overdose. It's like you were living. You were living all the way up to the end.
Feeling something. You were vibing. Yes. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Okay, so Pedro Rodrigues, Brazil. I freaking loved his nicknames too. He was known as Pedrino Matador, Killer Lil Pedro. This one's my favorite. Are you ready? Killer Petey.
That's my favorite. I wrote nickname. Killer Petey.
Killer Petey. Or simply
that's also
Killer
a thing.
Petey.
I know of this in like South America and Mexico. There's a lot of like nicknames that really surprise you for incredibly tough characters. Like Little Clown is a very popular nickname for like gang members in certain gangs.
Yes. Also too, in like Spanish culture and like Latin culture, those types of nicknames are very popular. Like one of my friends, Wendy, she's gonna crack up. She's a dentist now, just so we're clear. Her nickname's Lil Foolish.
Aww.
Makes no sense, but
Little Foolish?
Lil Foolish.
Was she in a gang?
No, but she was born in Mexico.
No, it's not.
I was
it's
like,
not
what?
Gang, no. It's not like gang specific, but
it's just like in that culture specifically.
Yeah.
That's cute.
Anyways, back to Petey or Killer Petey. So, self-proclaimed vigilante. His very first murder was at the age of 14 years old, and it was vindication. He killed the person who fired his father because
deputy
his
mayor.
father. Deputy mayor. He killed a deputy mayor on the steps of freaking the courthouse place and just straight up popped him because he fired his father because he thought his father was killing. So then after that, he ended up going and finding thought his father was stealing.
Yes.
Yeah. Thought his father was stealing. So then he went and found the person who was actually stealing and shot that guy too.
Yeah.
Well, who he thought was stealing. It was the person that he thought was guilty, but this is
the issue with vigilantism is where it's like, who is the like doing the what do you call it? Investigations? Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I can understand, and this is my own ignorance, but like I can understand in that area, there's probably guys who are really well known, like killers, criminals, like, you know, sexual assault perpetrators and stuff. But like, that's the issue with like that is the murders mostly happened a pretty long time ago. And it's kind of hard to parse out like, well, I don't know about this one. You know what I mean? Where there's like over 100. So it's like a few people who are probably just like, how shitty would that be if you just like started dealing weed and then like a week later this guy shows up to your house?
Right. Exactly. You're like,
no.
Like the Bruce Lee moment of just him standing in the doorway, like ready to kick your ass.
To buy sneakers.
I swear.
But he also like he targeted like drug traffickers and murderers, but he himself used drugs, sold drugs, and was a murderer. So
it just seemed to me that those were the people he was hanging out with. You know what I mean?
He was just killing his friends.
That's like who he was, or like maybe not even, but like at least contemporaries in a way where it's like, okay, that's what you were. Like something tells me if this guy didn't have as brutal of an upbringing and he became a librarian, he would be killing people that went to the library.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes. Yeah.
Well,
late book finds.
Right.
Yeah. So he was officially sentenced for 71 murders, but he claimed to have killed over 100 people.
Right.
And most of those people, he wiped out an entire gang. Like, he killed an entire gang of people who had wronged him specifically. So while he claimed to have been a vigilante, to have killed people, blah, 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 who were bad, really, I feel like it was just people who wronged him. Until...
that was all before he was 18 years old.
Exactly. Before he was 18 years old. And then he went into prison and then decided that he didn't want to stop killing and killed people in prison. On his way to prison the first time, he was in a van with a rapist and then like some other person. And by the time they got to prison, the cop opened up the van and those two people were dead.
Yeah,
just the rapist was dead.
Just the rapist.
Which, by the way, is a really solid move before you get to honestly.
Right. Like, if you're going to show up people, like, who not to mess with, it's killer PD.
The like, advice that people say is, like, when you get to prison, you pick the biggest guy and punch him in the face. And then this guy was like, oh, I haven't even gotten there yet, and I killed the guy in the van.
I killed him.
I killed the slot machine that must have formed in his eyes when he got in the van, and the guy was like, "Oh, hey, I'm rapist Bob." Oh, our dude must have just Pedro must have just been like, "Oh, thank you."
Yeah.
It's been 5 days before I have killed. This is such a blessing.
Well, and I love that the cop was like, what happened? And he was like, I killed him. And he was like, why? And he was like, because he was a rapist. Like, obviously.
Why weren't you looking behind you when you were driving the van? There was a lot of noise going on, dude.
Right.
Why are you so bad? Why did they get the deaf guy to drive the van? He must have been
everyone was hard.
He must have been jamming out so hard. Oh my god. The level of carpool karaoke that must have been going on in that van.
But my favorite part is that he was handcuffed the entire time.
Yeah.
Everyone was handcuffed in the van and killed him.
The entire time and killed him.
I think what we're kind of getting at slowly with this is like the justification of some of these murders are like murky at best. But either way, this guy just could not stop putting up numbers.
No, absolutely.
The Wilt Chamberlain of killing.
I mean, true, over 100 points. Yeah. Truly. Yeah. Right. Also, that's a big thing. I don't know how well versed you all are, but you might have tangentially heard of some of this through doing the podcast.
There's a specific good word.
Well, kind of, sort of. I don't even know if I used it right.
Tangentially.
You did use it right.
There's a YouTuber who went to federal prison and does a lot of YouTubes about like being in like high grade federal prison. One of the things he says is if anyone comes in with like bad paperwork, such as like assaulting women or rape or child molestation or whatever, like that guy, if you go to like the high grade federal prison, you're with general population, you're just so screwed. You're done because it's a bunch of guys who just like, they're so angry and fed up. And then they see like, oh, you have bad paperwork. We're just going to like, so for him, like, I feel like a good move to make sure you're just good in prison because they're like, oh, this guy's so down by the time you get in there. Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's wild.
Do you think they were just like, all right, like 2-year cell, I guess? Like, we're not going to, I don't know how we can put you in more prison. You're already on your way.
Yeah. Okay. So before we get to more prison states, I'm going to back us up. I'm going to, because you skipped a lot.
Yeah.
I'm getting there.
Right.
Give me a second. Let me get there.
I just don't. Okay.
You hit me with it. You go then. What I skip?
So when he was born.
Yeah, that's what I was getting to next.
Okay. I just don't want to go into the additional. Okay.
No. So he ended up.
Oh, you're going backwards.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
I understand. I'm sorry. This is.
Yeah, I got you. He ended up killing his father, the person who he first defended with his first murder, because his father killed his mother. There's a history of abuse there, though, because one of the reasons that I found, I did a little further digging into this, one of the reasons why they think he was a little off was because his father, back in the day, kicked his pregnant mother, and he was born with a head injury.
Yeah.
Which has been linked to psychopathy.
Exactly.
Yeah, you know, I wish I had more time to dig, because there's a lot of reasons. And we were talking about this before, but it's like respect to like people involved and victims and stuff. But a really interesting thing about, I mean, there's so many interesting things about this guy. But number one, and this is not to jump too far forward, but I want to watch more of his videos because I want to see how deep he gets into his own past and like reconciling with his own past, because he also was a contemporary of you guys, because he essentially did true crime podcasting. So it's like, it is like one of those very interesting things where it's like, I wonder if he ever like connected the dots on his past in that way and was like, oh yes, I was like this because of this, because he was like very much a public figure up until the point of his death.
Yeah.
So I do wonder if he was able to sort of like parse that out, because it's like, yeah, the head injury and obviously the like incredibly traumatic upbringing and stuff. I mean, I'm sure you guys get into a lot of cycle of pain and cycle of abuse things when it comes to this podcast, but
absolutely. Yeah. And like the thing that I find most interesting about like rounding it out with his father is like, so his father killed his mother via like stabbing, essentially with a machete. So then he vindictively got him back by killing him essentially the same way, and ended up stating later on that was his favorite way of killing is by stabbing people.
Yeah.
Like that was his favorite method to use.
Yeah. Yeah, the level of like detachment that he has with the murders does make me think like, yeah, there must have been some, like the head injury makes a lot of sense in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and his dad was just abusive to everybody. Yeah. So there was that. But he tried to kill his cousin when he was 13 years old by pushing him into a sugarcane press because he like rode his cousin's horse without permission. And so his cousin was like beating him up. And so he decided to kill him. And then he, at the very last minute, he was like, okay, never mind. I'll help you out of the sugarcane press. But his cousin ended up like losing an arm.
Yeah. It's such a brutal, like, cause this was outside of Rio de Janeiro, correct? Like
it wasn't.
And then he moved to the city, like eventually, but he moved to
Sao Paulo.
Yeah, so Brazil is like such an incredible place, but there are so many, and like many people who live there will tell you, like there's so much just abject poverty there. There's a MMA fighter, Rusamar Palhares. His nickname is actually, I believe it's Triqueño, which means little stump, and he's famous for continuing to fight even after the referee tells him to stop. and he actually was banned from several like MMA, and the entire like MMA community like really or like many members of it like really hate him for that. And there's a level of like justification for that because like you're going to hurt somebody or whatever. Yeah. But you look at this guy's background and like the abject poverty he grew up in, and it's like a smaller parable related to this. It's like, oh, that level of violence, in a way, it's not that it's justified, but it's understandable. And there's a big difference between justified and understandable. Like you hear like the kind of work this guy had to do and the kind of violence that he grew up around compounded with the head. It's like almost, I mean, hindsight's 2020, but it's almost like the perfect storm of like
or whatever
horror.
Yeah. Definitely. Well, and then like he was hanging out with gangs because that's what happens a lot of times, especially in poverty. So when he was, between 14 and 18, when he had his gang slaughter, and the reason he killed them was because he got this girl pregnant and a rival gang ended up killing her.
Right.
And so he went and tracked down every member of that rival gang and killed them all.
He killed an entire gang. It's nuts.
It's
as a child. Like he was a teenager.
It's so tough because like there's a moral like thing of like obviously killing is bad and all like, but there is something in my head where I hear they killed his pregnant girlfriend, so he killed every single one of them. And I cannot help but go, that's fucking awesome. Like, I can't help. This story is so difficult for me to kind of like parse through because I'm constantly oscillating between like, well, obviously this guy had like a lot of trauma and was like obviously acting out with these like murderous impulses, whether or not it was justified. But then a couple, like the rapist in the van story, I can't help as an individual. I'm not saying like legally it was okay, but I can't help but go, fuck yeah, dude. Oh,
that's sick.
Yeah. Maybe it's too many action movies or whatever, but that getting your pregnant girlfriend killed so you kill every single member of a gang at like the age of whatever, 12 or whatever he was.
Yeah.
There's a part of me that has to go, that rocks.
Yeah. Well, that's why he's known as the South American Punisher.
Yeah, the Punisher.
It's one of his things. So, okay. And so then he was visiting his dad. So this was before he got arrested. He was visiting his dad in jail. And that's when he killed him.
Oh, wow.
So it wasn't even like he was also incarcerated with his dad.
No, yeah.
And then what did he do, Stacy? Because you left out the best part of the dad killing. And he killed his dad because the dad continued to beat his mom. That was his justification.
Yeah. So when he killed his dad, he stabbed him 22 times.
Yeah.
And then took out his heart and nibbled on it.
Yep.
So so this is where it gets into something interesting for me. Was he doing that because he's a Goop fan of Anne Hathaway and he understood that meat organ was health? No, I'm kidding. I was not Anne Hathaway.
Gwyneth Paltrow.
Gwyneth Paltrow. Yeah. Gwyneth Paltrow. No, my question with that is, so you have the medical reason for this guy's like killing and stuff, which is head injury, like limits empathy, limits your ability to like regulate emotion or even like, have the emotion in the beginning. My question is, with some of these killers, you'll see something like that, which seems so deeply ritualistic, like eating a heart. There's something so like very primal, I get. Like there's something in there. Like, how do you kind of tease that out? Because that doesn't seem like someone who doesn't have emotions connect, or there's some sort of emotion there if you're eating the heart.
Well, psychopaths have emotions. They just don't have empathy. Like he wanted to devour his dad.
Right.
And you find with abused kids, it's never like, oh, my dad hit me, so I hate him, or, sexually abused me, so I hate him. It's, I have to win their approval. And they do that well into adulthood, which is why the cycle continues.
Right.
Because they're constantly trying to still get love from them. So usually with
that's really
cannibalism, I know it's sad. With cannibalism, and we saw this with Dahmer, is he wanted people to stop leaving him. And so in his brain, usually cannibalism is like the last thing they get to. That's the biggest taboo thing. It's the last thing they want to talk about. But how he justified it to himself, whether or not this is what happened. I think he got so depraved, it was the next step. But he wanted people to stop leaving him. And so by ingesting them, they never could.
Right.
So that's the kind of like, you know, was he doing that or was he doing that in a literal primal way of I am?
Yeah, that's interesting. So there's still
alpha.
There's still like a level of psychology involved, but it's just a level of psychology that's like kind of devoid from, like you said, empathy, which makes a lot of sense, teasing out emotion and empathy, because for some reason, I guess I always connected those two. Like I always felt like emotion required empathy, but I guess it doesn't. Like, and it's just like this. The empathy is sort of the governor for emotion in a way. When you take that governor off, it's like free reign.
Because most psychopaths are very angry. Like one of the tick marks in the like psychopathy test is anger towards others, and anger is an emotion, and like the strongest of them.
That's true.
So it's
and this guy was very retributive when it comes to whether or not it was like a justified level of retribution. There was always like a level of retribution on his mind.
So it's interesting for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
So then he was arrested. Then we get our fun rape story, which we all love, our rapist story. And then he is in prison and killed 47 more inmates. Funsies.
I mean, what is going on in that? Did the guards just like take a vacation?
Yeah. Well, have you seen this show? Stacy and I watched it together. Most Dangerous Prisons. Inside the Most Dangerous Prisons.
No, but I understand the idea, of course.
Yeah.
But no, I've never seen an episode.
It's really funny because this host goes in with like a camera crew and he's like in legitimately terrifying places and he's acting so scared. And I'm like, they're not going to kill you on camera. Like, what are you talking
Right. Well, I've always had this funny. Do you know the show Scared Straight?
Yeah.
I used to do a joke about this, but it's so funny because Scared Straight, the prison guards take children into a prison and then prisoners threaten to beat those children up if they ever got to prison. Right? That's the whole.
Yes.
So I never was able to make this make sense on stage, but the prison guards are sitting there while prisoners are like, we will beat you up. A prison guard's job is to make that not happen. That's the only the guards are there so you don't escape. And so everybody acts within the rules of the prison, one of which being you're not allowed to kick each other's asses. So it's just prison guards sitting there while the prisoners go, this guy's really bad at his job and I will kick your ass in here. That's the whole job. They're just sitting there while the people who work, like, who are in the prisons they work at, convince children, no, this guy sucks and I will beat you up. It's so, which is what it makes me think of this because like clearly the guards weren't paying much mind, or I mean, I'm sure there was a level of like, we're just going to let this guy kind of roam free here.
Yeah. So in the show, the like Most Dangerous Prisons, they show that the guards are usually bigger criminals. They're on the tape.
Yeah.
They're letting stuff in. They're bribed. Yeah. They're not looking, or they're setting up the situation. Like it's wild.
Right.
So yeah, it's like, here's all these prisoners in a big fenced in area.
Right.
That's the end of it.
And there's a guy who is willing to just kind of, take them out. And I'm sure a lot of the guards are like, oh, yeah, we're not trying to rehabilitate any of these people. Yeah, let's just kind of let this happen.
Yeah. And if he's taking out assholes, wouldn't the guards be like, yeah, that guy was a dick. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I wonder. Yeah, 47.
Yeah.
In prison.
47. And so he was, Stacy, you mentioned that he was a free man when he died. He was sentenced to 128 years in prison. And then I don't know if anyone saw this about Brazil's penal system. There was a law on the books that said you can't serve more than 30 years for a conviction. And now it's up to 40.
Whoa.
So he was sentenced to 30 years, about 128 year. But because he killed all those people, they tacked on 4 years. They tacked on four more years.
Which when you consider the amount of people, that's like 2 weeks a guy.
Yeah.
That's not a lot of time.
Murder.
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't murder one. That just takes a lot of effort. But if it's like, I'm only facing 2 weeks, like, okay.
Yeah.
I can serve 2 weeks.
And then he got, this is the really like fascinating thing to me is he sort of like, and I want to get into that too, but before he was killed himself, he had a career the app he was really big on, I don't think is a big thing in the United States, but like he had 200,000 or like 1 million, whatever, how many followers on some app where he would basically break down. Yeah. And he would break down cases of like other criminals and try to urge people to not commit crime.
Yeah.
Which is so interesting. Do you think he legitimately had like a reconciliation with himself and his actions? And he was like, well, what I did was really wrong and I'm going to try to change it. Like, where do you think that came from?
I think he liked being famous.
Right. That makes sense.
And so if he wanted to stay out, which like he went back again for the rape of the murder of the rapist.
Right.
Like that was his second stint in prison, but he liked the fame. And there were people around him at that point who were like, he's so nice. He's so charming, like all these things. And they were like, we can capitalize on that and monetize it. And he got out of prison the second time. When was it? 2007?
Yeah.
Or something. And Jeff Lindsay had written the Dexter series based off of him. So,
yeah. Which I had a thought on that where it's like, of course they made him like the whitest guy ever. Of course they got rid of the like gang stuff and all that. Because the thing about Dexter is this story, for what it is so much more like, I think that if this was the original draft of Dexter, people would be like, no one's going to he ate his dad's heart. Like, no one's going to believe that about
no one
Dexter.
Wants that. No one wants that in a hero.
Because Dexter's only killing, like, people who absolutely 100% committed murders and will continue to murder and blah, 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 blah. As though there's a ton of those. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, as though there's, like, a dearth of, like... I mean, you guys know how kind of rare that is. But, like...
Mm-hmm. He is in Florida. Dexter lives in Florida.
You know, not a bad point. Not a bad, and I'll take the L. But yeah, when it comes to this, obviously, like people aren't going to watch a TV show with a guy who like is killing low-level drug dealers and enjoying it and stuff. But it does make for a much more like interesting story, like that's full of moral quandary.
Yeah. Well, and like that's just kind of his justification for it. But like Stacy said, it started with people who just affronted him
pissed
personally.
Off at. Yeah.
So he just liked to kill.
Well, it was also probably easier to kill people in the underworld because less people are coming out to look for them, at least the police. Like we've seen that trend with other crimes where it's like it's easier to target people who have like not a good standing with the legal justice system.
Yeah. Oh, no, it's totally true. And you see it a lot with like house cleaners and they'll like kill prostitutes and they're like, I'm cleaning up the streets. And like, no, you like to kill and this is an easy target. They were easy targets. You're locked in with them.
Yeah. And as though like the sex workers are I mean, it's that whole thing.
As if they're
makes me so
the villains, not the pimps or the Johns.
And I mean, that's a nuts. There's so many more like crimes happening that are
also like, unionize sex work. Just legalize it, unionize it.
I'm kind of with you on that. Yeah. But it's tough. The like idea of vigilantism in general is so tough because whenever it seems to be enacted, it's even more brutal than the already flawed justice system that exists. So it's a tough one. Yeah.
Well, and no one should be judge, jury, and executioner, and like especially cops, anybody really.
Right.
And that's why I like it mad when a cop has to shoot some. Like, let's say it's a good shooting, right? And people are like, "Well, he was a bad guy; he deserved it." And it's like, well, you don't know that. Because there hasn't been a trial.
There hasn't been a trial. In those situations, it's usually like a SWAT situation where like there's a guy literally with a gun to someone's head ready to blow their head off. And like, a person takes a shot. And in those instances, again, like your head goes like, okay, that one makes sense. But like, there was this one attempted mass shooting in a church. This has very dangerous implications. I'm not saying that but this is just how the situation went. A guy pulled out a shotgun in a church, shot one guy, and then before he could get the second round off, another guy who was just like a concealed carry just pulled out his pistol and from like 30 yards away just absolutely laced this dude. Like just completely. And when I watch that, it's like, you're not going to get a much more justified use of deadly force than that. Yeah. Like, the guy is literally cocking a second shell. But people will look at that and go, see, like this is, and it's like in that instance, absolutely. And I couldn't sit here and argue against the deadly use of force in that situation. And like in that situation, I'm glad that particular guy had a handgun.
Yeah.
The issue is when you have 10 guys with a handgun and then the cops come in and you don't know who's doing what. You don't know which one of those guys has a shaky hand. You don't know which one. That's when it gets a little bit murky. So it's just a little bit easier to have a blanket rule against it in that case.
Yeah. Well, and we've also seen, like, we did an episode when Steve Fury was on about Ralph Tortorici, who took a classroom hostage.
Yeah.
And got a shot off, but they tackled him. Like, they were able to,
without the use of deadly force.
Yeah, without use of deadly force.
Yeah, that can happen.
Yeah. But no one should be judged during an executioner, especially serial killers.
Yeah. Especially people who had the most traumatic life of all time. Yeah.
Yeah, like maybe not them.
And then my second question, because I wasn't able to get a lot of information, I wonder if you were, his demise, was that a retribution from a gang, or does anyone really know?
I don't think so. No, I think it was a random shooting. Sorry, Stacy.
Wow. No, you go for it.
Okay. I was going to say it was like two guys in a car, drive by, straight up shooting a lot of people. And I think he just got caught in the fire. Oh, and there have been no suspects.
Man, that is such a crazy, crazy way to go for this guy.
Yeah. It also speaks to the crime rate in Brazil.
Yeah, that area. Yeah. Well,
right?
That
area of Brazil.
I mean, the police in Brazil are, I don't know if you've ever seen any of those, like the videos of Brazilian police, but buck wild, 100% military police. They will shoot suspects from helicopters. Like, the police will shoot suspects from helicopters there, which is
wild.
It's wild. It's a wild place. It's like some areas, and I'm sure there are areas of course there's areas of Brazil that aren't filled with that level of crime. But when it comes to people like that who live these lives of hyper-violence, I always do wonder if there is a level of karma or spiritual whatever. Because you would think this guy would have so many people. I mean, just with the numbers he put up, there must have been some people that were we got to get this guy. But to kind of go down randomly like that is so interesting to me.
Yeah, it would almost be better if it was a mob thing where years later they've been waiting for hit. It's much more.
But it was dramatic. so many years later, right? The killings took place mostly in the 70s and 80s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the 70s, I think. Yes. He was arrested in 73. So
73 to 2007 were the criminal charges. Yeah, interesting.
So late 60s. Mm-hmm. And then I just love that he got out in 2007 and became a YouTuber.
Yeah.
As you do.
Listen.
As you do.
That's the life. All right. And it is very funny thinking of this guy who killed 100 people, opening his laptop and being oh, the numbers are down. Oh no. I got to get on the algorithm needs to be fed now. Would an intro, should I do an intro to this video, or should I do it more kind of raw and real? Just that guy having those thoughts is so having that guy have the thought oh, only 200 likes on this one. What do I need to do to boost engagement?
It also goes to show boomers can learn.
That's true. I don't know if you've seen his YouTube, but it is very much like the YouTube channel of a guy his age. There's
it's just it's a boomer channel.
Yeah, it definitely is a boomer. Even the picture, the profile picture is him in a vague boxing stance. Yes. That guys that age just kind of doing, and it's
also a very traditional stance that you do in prison, photos and family.
It's that, and then it's the squat. The where you kind of squat and you put your fist up. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Stacy works with the prison system.
Oh, interesting. In what capacity?
I teach arts and rehabilitative programming at a level 4 correctional facility.
Is level 4 how do they do the number system?
So okay, when you're in prison, there's a points-based system. So anytime something happens, anytime something bad essentially happens, you get points for it. So the toughest of tough, the violent of violent, the most max security is at a level 4. So like,
Whoa.
Yeah. Most of my students are lifers and are never leaving.
Right.
So basically I work in the state of California, and essentially problem children, people who don't want to be dealt with anymore, people who don't want to work, like they just don't want to deal with these people anymore, get shipped up to the facility that I work with.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did
she
you
has clearance at San Quentin.
Whoa. Did you seek that out? Like, were you trying to work with
level
4? No.
It sort of found me. So the company that I work for has been doing this type of programming for 20 years. Mm-hmm. And they started at San Quentin, and that's where they established their program and things like that. And then it just sort of expanded through like the success of the program into other facilities. So now they're in like Old Folsom and where I'm at, and it just sort of expanded. And then the contract that we got for this specific program and facility, it's essentially too far for a lot of the Bay Area based people to drive out to. So they reached out to us, and that's kind of how I sort of fell into it. Yeah.
Wow. That's good for you.
Thank you.
It's great work. Yeah.
Yeah, it's exciting.
Dan, tell us what you've got.
What have you got coming up?
This airs 9/11, so.
Great. Okay, let me see here. That's when I do all my promotional stuff, so that actually makes a lot of sense. On my link tree, where you can find all of this, Not Bad Dan on my link tree. At 9/16, I'm going to be in Orange County, and 10/14, I'm going to be in Des Moines. So those are the two that are coming up. Yeah. Okay. And then I'll have more dates, but I post them all on my Instagram and Linktree.
Great. So definitely follow Dan at Not Bad Dan on Instagram.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for coming on.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
This was so fun.
Very good.
We'd love
very
to have
fun.
You back.
I'd love to come back. Thank you so much.
Perfect.